wrapping up, I mean, really, as you can see, look, there's a host of things that have made it extremely difficult to access protection. They've been focused in a very cruel manner and have resulted in chaos at the border, increased dangers, kidnappings, really some horrific circumstances that people are barely surviving in as they wait on the border, hoping to access the United States. And I think what's really important here is to remember that we're talking about people, men, women, and children who've traveled and walked sometimes thousands of miles to save their own lives or save their children's lives. They're resilient, they are strong, they are powerful. This movie demonstrates that in a million ways, right? And they deserve our respect and to be heard. So I thank you, Chris, for making this movie, and Lizbeth for all your incredible hard work. The good news is that we now have a new administration, and one that has said that they will address the chaos at the border, that they will reverse these cruel policies, and that they are ready to create a new, more humane system and restore order and rule of law. And humanity to our immigration and border policies. So we're hopeful, and you know, I'm happy to talk a little bit more about that as we proceed.
Thanks, Michelle. So Lizbeth, how has being undocumented informed or changed the way that you can help your clients?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, the fact that my clients know, and I think the majority of them when they come to my office, they know I'm undocumented. I think it gives them this sense of, you know, I can trust her, I can open up to her. And I've had clients, especially women who have been victims of crimes, you know, open up to me about things that happened to them that they've never told anyone, because they felt like other attorneys or other people just in general will not understand, you know, their situation and their feelings, and really not only empathize, but maybe have gone through some of the same things, or I have gone through the same things that they have, you know, also being in removal proceedings. So it's, you know, it helps me really understand where my clients are coming from. So the way that I deal with my clients, I always tell them that, you know, when we're working together, it's a partnership. That I can't do magic, that I can only help them if they help me, if they help themselves. And I think I try to give them a little bit of control, or a feeling of control over the things that sometimes they can't control, because especially being in removal proceedings is a very scary situation. It's a very stressful time in their lives, not knowing, you know, when is the judge going to rule on my case, and are they going to send me back to my country, you know, the next time I go to a hearing. So first of all, I think that's one of the things that I like about being able to connect with my clients based on my, you know, personal story as well. And then the fact that being undocumented and having been an organizer for a long time, you know, I know that the laws are not always on my client's side. I know that the immigration system is really broken. And even when we have strong cases, the likelihood or the possibility that we're going to lose in court is very high. So I'm very honest with my clients, and I tell them, look, if we lose in court, we can always try to appeal. But there's also other ways to fight, you know, try to change the things that are wrong, try to change policy through your story. So if you're willing to fight and to, you know, share your experiences as well, I'm game. I'll help you. You know, I'm always going to be there for you for as long as you want me. And I will, you know, will never do anything that someone is not comfortable in doing. But I think that being open about my status also helps them feel like I can also do this, or I can do it to some extent, and feel empowered to share their experiences.
And Chris, from your perspective, why do you think the story needs to be told now? Why is it relevant to the broader state of immigration in the US?
That's a good question. And, you know, coming at it from a filmmaker perspective, I always talk about and think about documentaries of being able to create change in three main ways, right? You can change minds, you can change policy, and you can change lives. And I think we're trying to do all three here. And I think that's why this film is important now. And I'll kind of break it down. I mean, from the mind standpoint, I think that one's a little bit more obvious, where a film has the potential to generate empathy and allow a personal narrative that somebody can connect to, where it's a lot easier, even for myself, to the amount that I've learned from Lizbeth and from Adith going through the process of making this film and watching it and editing it and understanding Lizbeth's perspective on this issue has been incredibly invaluable. And I hope the film can help others come along on that journey and to think differently about the experiences and the challenges that somebody and the motivations that somebody might have, like Lizbeth, as they're going through the system. So I think change minds is a big goal and something that we want to have happen through this film. If somebody walks away and just can empathize better and can think and feel for this experience, that's great. On the policy side, I think there's a lot of opportunity, and looks like we'll continue to talk about this, but with the current administration, I think, how does this film play in? And we're doing a number of things on the policy side of working with the ACLU, with great organizations like yourselves, working actually directly with the Biden administration and HBO of how does this film play in and kind of be there as a catalyst for shifting certain policy priorities, certain petitions and changes that we want to see happen in the future, which is, I mean, increased support for immigration lawyers. I mean, so many of the things that you've had already outlined, an expedited process of the asylum system, more support for and a pathway for citizenship for individuals like that, the improvements of DACA, countless things on the policy front. And then I think on the change lives side, it gets very specific, where I hope this film helps Lizbeth and helps Adith. And that is a core element of what this film can do. And on the Adith side, which I think is really important and something that Lizbeth has been so passionate about from the very beginning, you know, she was only willing to do this film if we were willing to have Adith in there and to help her clients as a process of this film. So we've started a petition together, actually, that we'll be releasing soon to help get Adith out of sanctuary. We're asking directly to the Biden administration as well as DHS to provide her with a stay of removal and to remove her her deportation order and provide her some protection after 3.5 years of being forced to seek sanctuary in this church to avoid, you know, herself and her family being deported back to a really dangerous situation. So on the Adith side, I think there's a lot we can do there. And then with Lizbeth, something that we're doing with all of these events this fall, we've been doing so many wonderful events with organizations like yourselves, with schools, and then the film will eventually be on HBO, and 100% of any of the money that we're raising through donations is going to support a legal fund to protect asylum seekers that supports all of Lizbeth's pro bono work. So everything she's done for Adith has been entirely pro bono, which I think people don't realize too. And it's an incredible sacrifice and work that she's doing late hours. I mean, some of the text conversations that we have are at 11:30 at night, and Lizbeth is still up working for a client and still out there hitting the pavement and doing this work. And it's pro bono. And so this fund, we hope, will help Lizbeth's law practice to continue to help people like Adith and others who are seeking asylum through this. So that change lives is kind of the third element. And I think, as Lizbeth sort of says in the film, for those of you who have seen it, you know, I buy into Lizbeth's philosophy that there isn't necessarily going to be some giant immigration reform that's going to come in at one moment and save the day. And I think we have to look at, how do you create these wins? What are the individual actions that each of us can take to help an individual like Adith or shift one part of this policy, and that these small wins will really lead and create the pathway for a much bigger conversation and more change down the line. And they really set that bar. So that's what we hope this film will do, and why. And in terms of timeliness, it's we all know it's got to happen now. There's an opportunity with the new administration coming in, and there's a lot that we need to reverse just to create a sense of a normalcy again.
So on that topic, Michelle, let's come back to you. What do you see as the next steps for US policy at the border, and what actions can we expect from this Biden administration?
Yeah, I mean, look, what to expect. At the onset, we know that this administration has come in saying that they are going to change policies with respect to immigration. And they've already done some of those things, right? Or at least started. We've seen steps. So they've already indicated that they have legislation drafted that they want introduced to address legalizing people like Lizbeth and like Edith, to create a process, to create the actual line for people to get in so that they can, you know, get status and become citizens and move on with their lives in a productive and healthy and happy way. So that is starting. You know, obviously there's going to be a lot of political issues that come up on that. Congress has to go through that, but the administration has indicated that they are going to move forward aggressively to get that through. They've already started reversing some of the things that the Trump administration did. And so we've seen a reversal or withdrawal of the Muslim bans, for example, and the Africa bans. So some of the travel bans that we were all protesting over actually just popped up on my Facebook today, right? So 4 years ago today, apparently I was at an airport protesting the first bans. So those are already starting to roll out. But I think it's really important to note that we need to do more than just reverse what the Trump administration did. There's also a lot of rebuilding that needs to be done. So yes, we need to, you know, reverse the Remain in Mexico policy. We need to reverse some of these obstacles to getting asylum, but we also need to build a system that is humane and organized and orderly and fair and accessible, right? And again, the Biden administration has indicated that they want to do that. We were hoping and expecting for some executive orders tomorrow that seem like they're going to be delayed a bit, but we're still very confident that they're coming soon. And we understand that it takes time sometimes to build a better system. And I think that the administration also understands that there's an urgency here, right? There are people waiting at the border. So they've indicated that they want to take a very holistic approach to this, which I think is really important. So they want to both address regional and root causes, right? Let's look at what's happening in the countries that people are fleeing. Let's support fighting back against climate change that is causing a lot of the issues that people are fleeing. Let's support civil society and accountability in countries and address some of the political unrest and some of the violence so that people don't have to flee. Then also they've indicated that they want to create new pathways. So I think I mentioned earlier on that there are no pathways for how to come to the United States in a safe, orderly way, right? So there's chaos and disorder. Create those pathways, create a refugee process so that people can apply for ways to come to the United States that bring them in an orderly, fair, and safe way. And create a system at the border, reversing these rules and creating a reception system, right, to welcome people so that there's a process to go through that is feasible to go through and that treats people humanely. So getting rid of detention, ending the separation of families, all of that is already things that this administration has indicated they want to do and that I think we expect will happen soon. So, you know, there's this tension of getting it right, but also doing it fast. And they have a lot on their plate. But so far, we're seeing a real will to move forward and do that. And, you know, there are organizations all across the border, the Women's Refugee Commission, and many, many people working individually all along the border, ready to step up and help. One of the things that we saw with the crisis around family separation over the last several years was that the American public did not like that approach, right? They want an approach that is more welcoming and humane. And people really stepped up to help and do something about it. And so now is our opportunity to do that. We can do it, and there's the will to do it. So I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of very positive changes.
Thanks, Michelle. We've had some questions coming in while we've been talking from our audience. This one is from Lewis, and it's for you, Lizbeth. Have the new executive orders coming from the Biden administration impacted your deportation case?
My particular deportation case has not been impacted yet, but I do anticipate that something will happen. So just a little bit of, quick background on my case. I've been in removal proceedings for 10 years. I was first put in removal proceedings in May 2010. And a few months later, the government agreed to administratively close my case. In fact, they offered to administratively close my case. And I was put again in removal proceedings in 2013 during my first year in law school. And after about a year and a half of going, back and forth between Los Angeles and the Bay Area where I was studying, and going to court in Los Angeles, the judge, at the request of my attorney and the government, administratively closed my case. So for about 6 years, I was not in active removal proceedings. I knew that the government could, reopen my case, recalendar my case at any moment, and they did last January, about a year ago. I believe January 30th was the date that they recalendar my case. So I am in removal proceedings. There's no word yet on whether my case will be closed again, whether they will administratively close it. My attorney did ask the government's attorney for administrative closure a few months ago, and she did not agree because there's a policy in place, there's a rule in place that government attorneys should not agree to administratively close a case, and then judges have been stripped of that power to do that on their own if they see that a case, should not be a priority for removal at this moment. So we'll see. I have seen some minor changes with my client's case with the deed. We did file a stay of removal a couple of days ago, and we have been trying to file a stay of removal with ICE for 3.5 years. Only once did they accept a stay in those 3.5 years. And they immediately, within an hour, they denied that stay of removal. This time, they agreed, and they made it very clear that it was because of the executive order halting deportations for 100 days, halting some deportations for 100 days, that they decided to agree to accept the case and to process that, that stay of removal, that stay request. It's still pending. They have not denied it. So that's a good sign. So I'm hopeful that something will happen in the next, few weeks with the Deeds case.
Oh, well, that's a very relevant answer to a question we're now going to ask you, Michelle, from one of our audience members, Francis. Thanks for asking this. So, Michelle, what is realistic with our current Congress, and how can ICE be curtailed?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? Because it's the same people who are working in ICE that were working there a couple weeks ago. But leadership makes a difference, right? And so, again, it's not going to be easy to change the culture, but I think that the administration is starting off trying to set a new sort of standard and a new approach. The 100-day moratorium was an indication that, we're going to stop things while we review and thoughtfully think through the logic behind some of these policies and implement things in a way that is legal and makes sense. We are going to see resistance. That order, that moratorium was, there's an injunction from a Texas court that sued on that. So we expect that to happen. But, I'm hopeful that the administration will continue to press forward. It's, some things you can do overnight, right? Some things are just a simple policy change that you lift the travel ban and then that ban doesn't exist anymore, right? So you then create the policies for processing people. There's going to be give and take. Not everything's going to happen overnight, but I am hopeful. We're only 9 days in right now. And there's already been significant change. So, it's, and to a point that Lizbeth made earlier, the work of organizers and advocates is not over just because we have a new administration. It is now still our job as people who are interested in these issues and as organizers and as advocates to tell our elected officials what we want and keep telling them, right? Because they still have a responsibility to the voters, and the voters, they said what they wanted, but we need to keep saying it. So I think there's still a lot of work to do on both sides. We need to keep telling them what we want and keep pushing. And I'm hopeful that they will follow through.
Good, great answer. And we have time just for one last question, sadly. This is from Rawad for you, Lizbeth. And it's a great question that I was asking myself when I was seeing your film last night. How do you keep going?
Well, I have a very great support system. First of all, my parents have been, my my biggest supporters. I think sometimes they probably don't understand the things that I do, or they wonder whether it's safe to do, the things that I do very openly. But they don't question it. They always tell me, look, we're here to support you. Whatever happens, we're going to be here. They've supported me through some of the crazy things I've done over the years as an organizer. And they always tell me that, to keep going, to keep doing everything I want to do, to believe in myself, to ask for help if I need help. And I've had really dark days as as an attorney. During the last 4 years, I mean, I've had days where I just feel like I can't keep going. And of course I cry and, I let it all out. I let all that anger out. But then I go home and I spend time with my parents, and I love to talk to them and to hear their stories and to learn more about where they come from, how they were as young people, what were their dreams, what are their aspirations as as grandparents now. I have two young nephews, a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old, and they are my heart and soul. I love them, and I want to continue fighting for them because I don't want them to go through the things that a lot of children go through when their parents are undocumented, to go through that fear of not knowing whether their parents are going to come home. I love them too much to give up. I think they deserve, just like every child in this world deserves, a better society, a better world. And I think it's my responsibility as their auntie to do my part. And so, I fall sometimes and I feel like I don't want to get out of bed, but I have a picture of my nephew when he was a baby. One of my nephews when he was a baby, and that's the first thing I see when I wake up. That is the first thing. It's right in front of the wall in front of my bed, and I just have to see that little smile and feel like, okay, I can take on the world. Whatever the world wants to throw at me today, I'll tackle it, and then I'm gonna come home, and the last thing I'm gonna see is that smile.
I think there's also a few pictures of your nephews around your office as well. So I think you constantly are seeing
Yeah,
that motivation.
absolutely, yes.
So, panelists, what are your hopes for 2021? Let's start with you, Michelle.
I hope that we don't become complacent, that 2021 sees not just a reversal of some of the really cruel and horrific policies that we experienced, but that we also are able to move towards healing and positive moving forward, steps forward, so that we replace the cruelty and closed environment, punitive environment that we've had, not just with people coming to the border, but in our daily lives, right? It just feels like it's all been about cruelty. But that's replaced with welcome with dignity. Let's become who we want to be.
Great answer. And you, Chris, what are your hopes for 2021?
Yeah, I think I just want us to take a deep breath, to listen, to practice more empathy as we move forward. And then I really hope that Lizbeth wins an Academy Award. It's another big goal. So we'll find out on February if the film gets shortlisted in any way, and then it releases on HBO in March. And so if you want to support the film, we're just a tiny little nonprofit team. Go rate it online, tell your friends about it, try to build some buzz. And that's how, if this film gets there, it's going to be because of the grassroots movement.
Yes, it deserves all the effort, you guys who are watching in this morning and supporting us. Please see this remarkable film. And you, Lizbeth, what are your hopes for 2021?
Well, first of all, I hope the pandemic, we can get it over with, so we can go back to a bit of a more normal life, but hopefully as better human beings who can empathize more. I do want a change of tone around immigration issues, but I also want actual changes, whether they're incremental or whether there's a huge immigration reform bill. I think we deserve it. I think we've gone through hell and back, in the last 4 years, and not just in the last 4 years, but even before that. And I think it's time to start changing some of those policies. And I hope that if there's anything good that comes out of having had this president who was so anti-immigrant and anti so many things, is that we've that he has exposed what's wrong with a lot of policies, not just around immigration, but many other things, and that we can start tackling those issues and changing them. And of course, I want my client Edith to be free. I am determined to win that case somehow, and I'm hopeful that that's going to happen. I think that is one of my top priorities. Of course, taking care of my family, but also getting making sure that Edith can walk out of that church free and without the threat of deportation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And thank you to you all who've kindly joined us today. Please spread the word of the important work of Women's Refugee Commission. And thank you so much to all our panelists. And as I mentioned at the start of today's Lantern Talk, today is the first in a series of events. And I'm thrilled to announce that the next event will focus on music and advocacy. And it'll take place on Thursday, February the 25th, with Grammy Award-winning musician Steve Earle and musician Tao Nguyen. So learn more about that. Visit, please, lanterntalks.org. And before we go, we have a very special announcement to share with you. Let's take a look. So for more information on the Voices of Courage event and to donate to this very important organization, visit womensrefugeecommission.org. Well, thank you, everyone, and we wish you a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.